The winter I remember most arrived without asking permission. Snow came down in a slow, patient way, as if the sky itself had learned how to grieve. It softened the valley and silenced the land, pressing its white palm over every sharp thing. That was the season Elias Crowder learned how loud loneliness could be. He lived at the far edge of the valley, where the earth thinned into rock and scrub. His farmhouse leaned slightly east, as if listening for something that never arrived. Each morning, Elias stepped into the cold before the sun had fully decided to rise, breath breaking apart in the air like fragile glass. He fixed fences with hands already numb, not because the fences needed fixing, but because routine was the only thing that answered him back. The town lay 3 miles downhill, tucked into a bend of the river, and it spoke of Elias often without ever speaking to him. They called him Quiet, which was their gentlest word. Other names followed behind it: odd, barren, unfinished. A man without a wife or children unsettled them. A man who did not explain himself felt dangerous in a way they could not name. When Elias went into town for feed, the snow creaked beneath his boots like an old floorboard, complaining of weight. Inside Calder's store, warmth rose thick with the smell of grain and lamp oil. Conversation slowed when he entered. Mabel Henshaw paused mid-sentence, her mouth still shaped around someone else's business. Sheriff Amos Pike nodded once, a nod that carried duty but not welcome. Elias paid in silence. Coins clinked. A sack slid across the counter. He did not linger. He had learned long ago that staying too long invited questions, and questions always wanted more than he could give. As he stepped back into the cold, he heard Mabel's voice loosen again behind him, the way a door opens once the threat has passed. Snow followed him home. It clung to his coat, to his hat brim, to the old ache in his chest that no amount of walking ever warmed. The valley opened wide and empty before him, and for a moment he wondered if that emptiness was not land at all, but something inside him wearing the shape of hills. It was near dusk when he saw her for the first time. She stood where the cottonwoods thinned near the creek, tall and still, wrapped in winter hides the color of earth after rain. Snow dusted her shoulders, resting there as if it trusted her. She did not move when Elias stopped, nor did she raise a hand in greeting or warning. She simply watched him, her eyes dark and steady, holding a patience that felt older than the valley itself. Elias's first instinct was not fear but caution, the quiet kind that comes from knowing how small one man can be against the world. He did not reach for his rifle. Instead, he lowered the sack of feed and stepped back, giving space the way he always did. Silence stretched between them, unbroken, not hostile. The wind moved through the grass. Somewhere, ice cracked along the creek. He went inside and returned with a tin cup filled with water, the well having not yet frozen solid. He set it on a rock near the creek and stepped away again. The gesture felt almost foolish, but it was the only language he trusted. After a long moment, she approached, lifted the cup, and drank. Her eyes never left his. She did not speak. Neither did he. When she turned and disappeared into the trees, Elias felt something shift, subtle as a snowflake landing on bare skin. In the days that followed, winter deepened. Storms came heavier, nights colder. Elias found tracks near the creek, then near the barn. He left bread where the water had been. He patched a lean-to he had once meant to tear down. Each small act felt less like charity and more like acknowledgement, as if he were saying to the land, "I see what you are asking of me." The town saw it too. Whispers grew sharper, more purposeful. Mabel Henshaw took to watching the valley road from her window. Sheriff Pike rode out once, reins tight in his gloved hands, reminding Elias of boundaries and unspoken rules. Elias listened, nodded, and returned to his chores. Defiance had never been his way. Endurance was. She came more often then, always at the edge of his vision, never crossing the threshold unless invited by necessity. Elias noticed things without meaning to: the careful way she handled tools, the respect she gave fire, the quiet authority in her posture. She carried herself as someone accustomed to being seen clearly, even if not always kindly. One evening, the cold dropped so suddenly the stars looked sharp enough to cut. Elias found her near the barn, the wind tearing at her hides. Without a word, he gestured toward the house. She followed, pausing only once, as if measuring the cost of that step. Inside, the air smelled of wood smoke and old pine. Elias poured stew into 2 bowls and set one across from him. They ate in silence, the scrape of spoon against clay loud in the small room. When she finished, she rested her hands on the table, strong hands marked by work and weather. At last she spoke. Her voice was low, steady, carrying no ornament. She told him her name was Tallulah Red Willow. She told him her people had been scattered, that winter had taken more than had ever returned. She told him she had watched him long enough to know he was a man who did not take what was not offered. Then she said the words that would not leave him. She wanted an heir from him. Not desire, not romance. Need. Continuance. A bridge laid between what had been lost and what might still stand. The room seemed to tighten around the sentence, as if even the walls were listening. Elias felt heat rise to his face, not from lust but from a sudden, piercing awareness of himself, his solitude, his fear, his untested worth. He did not answer. Outside, the wind pressed hard against the house, rattling the windows as though insisting on a response. Tallulah waited, her gaze unwavering, not pleading, not demanding, just waiting. The fire crackled. Snow fell heavier, sealing the valley in white. Elias stared at his hands, scarred and steady, and wondered if a man who had spent so long disappearing could learn how to be chosen. Sleep did not come easily after that night. Elias lay awake listening to the house settle, each creak sounding like a question he had no practice answering. Tallulah's words returned again and again, not as a demand but as an opening, wide and frightening. By morning, frost filmed the inside of the windows, and the valley looked newly forged, hard and bright. Elias stepped outside and felt the cold bite deep, as if the land itself wanted to know what kind of man he would be today. Tallulah remained near, never pressing, never retreating. Days passed with work shared and silence respected. Elias showed her how to coax life from frozen soil, how to read the sky for weather the way his father once taught him. She showed him how to set stones against the wind, how to wait without weakening. Their connection grew in the unspoken spaces, in the way she handed him a tool before he asked, in the way he set an extra log on the fire without looking to see if she was cold. The town did not miss the change. Sheriff Pike rode out again, his voice careful, his eyes sharp with concern dressed up as duty. He warned Elias of rumors, of trouble that liked to grow where lines blurred. Elias listened as he always had, but this time something held him upright. He thanked the sheriff and returned to his work, the sound of his hammer steady as a heartbeat. Watching from the rise, Tallulah did not smile, but her shoulders eased, just slightly. Winter tested them both. A storm came hard one night, snow driven sideways, burying the valley in white noise. The roof of the barn groaned under the weight. Elias and Tallulah worked together in the dark, reinforcing beams, their breaths mingling like smoke. At one point, the wind knocked Elias off balance. Tallulah caught him with a grip that did not waver. For a moment, he rested there, held, and the simple certainty of that contact settled something loose inside him. When the storm broke, the town rode out as one. Fear had sharpened their curiosity into accusation. They gathered at the fence line, words carried on the cold air, questions of propriety, of threat, of who belonged and who did not. Elias felt the old instinct to shrink, to let the noise pass over him like weather. But Tallulah stood beside him, her presence a quiet challenge, and he realized that silence, used wrongly, could also be a kind of surrender. He stepped forward. His voice was low, unpolished, but it held. He spoke of choice, of respect, of a life built on labor rather than permission. He did not defend Tallulah as if she needed it. He spoke only of himself, of the man he was trying to become. The words surprised him as much as anyone. When he finished, the valley seemed to exhale. No one cheered. No one apologized. But the crowd thinned, judgment loosening its grip. Sheriff Pike met Elias's eyes and nodded once, this time with something like recognition. The town rode away, leaving tracks that would soon fill with snow. Spring did not arrive all at once. Winter lingered, stubborn and proud. Yet something had shifted beneath it. Tallulah stayed. Elias did not promise more than he could carry, and she did not ask. They moved forward in the way they had begun, through effort, through patience, through the shared understanding that dignity grows best when tended quietly. If you are listening to this story now, perhaps it is because you know what it is to stand at the edge of being seen. Remember this: worth does not always announce itself. Sometimes it waits, steady and unafraid, for someone brave enough to meet it without turning away. And if stories like this one remind you that quiet lives can hold great courage, consider subscribing. Stay with us, and we will keep telling the kind of tales that warm the long winters of the heart.